but I always want something actionable. So I want to talk about knowing your story and helping you tell it, and helping you tell it in a way that allows you to create opportunity, create interaction, create value, and share your gifts. Because everyone this is probably, hearing everyone talk about everything you've got your hands into. Is there a corner of Sarnia, Lambton, or Ontario that you're not touching right now? Doubt it, because you're all involved in something. So step one, this is 5 steps. We're going to get into it. You're going to have some homework. But step one is looking at your core values itself. So here's how we do it. There's a little activity that I go through in order to help identify what your core values are, because many of you talked about how you're driven by your ethics, your morality, your core values, and that you have strong beliefs. So let's identify some of them, whether you attach this to your personal business, your work with the Gene Collective, or it's just kind of cool to know you can do this. So here's step one. If you could, here's how we determine your core values. If you could, and you write this down, identify 3 people, living, past, present, no limits, global, the world is your oyster. Identify 3 people that in any given situation you were in, be it trouble, be it happiness, be it sadness, be it challenge, those 3 people, if you looked and saw them standing right beside you, you would feel comfort, you would feel glad, you would feel like you are in your element. So who are those 3 people? They can be, like I said, living, dead, futuristic. I don't know who it's going to be. Futuristic's kind of tough, but take the challenge on if you so deem. But identify those 3 people, and I'll give you 30 seconds, probably to a minute. I also have ADD, so if I'm moving a lot and talking a lot, I don't medicate for it. I just use it. It's my superpower. Identified who you would have walking alongside you. I want you to look at those 3 names, and I want you to write down the characteristics that make them unique. Why that person? What about them means that in the times, like I said, times of struggle, times of sadness, times of joy, celebration, what characteristics about them puts them right with you? And I don't mean behind you, meaning you're leading them and dragging them through life. Meaning if you needed to, when you felt them around you or had their support or they were with you, that would help propel you forward, would give you either comfort or energy or however it looks. But what characteristics about those 3 people, and write them all down, they all count. Characteristics are. But there is no limit as to how many of the characteristics you're going to write down. But I'm willing to bet that person 1 and person 2 and person 3 have somewhat overlapping traits. That you could see if there's a personality trait of honesty or integrity, that might translate amongst all 3. Might be that they are a hard worker, right? Well, that translates across all 3. Now, we're not doing it as a resume build. We're not looking at, I'm a hard worker, good communicator, I show up on time. None of that, those can be your core values. But looking at your list of all those traits, what commonalities are amongst all of them? Could you pick out 3 to 5 traits that are somewhat common that could be duplicated amongst all 3 people? Because what we're trying to do is if I said to you, okay, Lisa, tell me what your core values are. You could give me, I know you could, in a heartbeat, what your core values are, but those would likely be what your values are based on either a strong belief that's been baked in or influences from current situations, right? You might have something on the top of your mind, a current political situation or the COVID lockdown or something that would make you say something or do something that you're really not. Right? That's not the most important. But by doing this exercise, we are able to say it's difficult to see it in ourselves, but it's easy to see when it's reflected back to us from people we choose to put around us. So if you can find 3 to 5 characteristics within that translate across all 3, and then look at those and understand Do those meet your core values? Does that reflect you? Could you say, if you were to say to somebody, what do you think I'm all about? If they told you that you represent all of those core values, those 3 to 5, how would that make you feel? Would you be proud? You say, that's great. That's me living with integrity, with virtue. That's how I want to represent myself. Does it represent you? Okay. So by doing this, does anyone want to share their core values? What'd you come up with? Any ideas? I've done this before and some people are like, this is too personal. Do you want to start with the people or do you want to go? Steph, tell me. Which is always tricky because if you see Guy Kawasaki's TED Talk on innovation, he gives a reference to Wendy's mission statement. Do you know what it is? It talks about Wendy's mission is to deliver high quality, healthy, home cooked stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, healthy? What? No offense to Wendy's, but you read it and you don't see Wendy's, right? Because people create these mission statements because it's a selling tool. But if you could take those characteristics, Julie, to create a mission statement based on your values, because if you're in the people industry and you're in the connection industry, and you're trying to work with people on equalities and social rights, your values and who you are is the core of your story. So if you can create a mission statement, even better, a mantra about those. So like Steph said, equality, accountability, stability, that's kind of 3 kind of key words. Now it's changed and she's adapting it. But could you take those characteristics that drive that, and you don't have to do it on the spot, that's why you get homework, and create either a mission statement or a mantra that drives you. So when you're having conversations with people, you can express your values in a quick, succinct way so they know what you're about.
Yeah, I think I could.
One more, anybody else? And I have to scroll through. So if you're raising your hand, just don't do that. Just unmute and yell at me.
I can go.
All right.
I actually,
And the homework for that is to create that mission statement or that mantra. You create that piece that allows you to identify what is at your core so that you can live with that, you can express that, you can share that. And then when you find other people that meet that, you connect, and connection is much easier. The second piece is identifying what business you're really in. So this piece, I did at a conference years ago, and I think it's super, super impactful. So many of you are working with local groups, you're working on your own businesses, you're starting out, you're trying to grow the Gene Collective, you're doing all these great things. So we got to look at what business you are really in. So Erica, you cannot answer this because we did this the other day. So you get to stay over there and just support. But this piece is very impactful. So I want you to start looking at industry or at service offerings a little bit differently. So in this case, if I asked you, and I'm going to go to, I'm going to ask somebody, it's going to be like class, and you're going to get picked on. It's going to be great. Let's talk to Rose.
Hey.
Hey, Rose. Tell me, when you go to the doctor, why do you go to the doctor? What business is a doctor in? What do they do for you?
They are in the helping and assisting business.
Okay.
By the time I go to a doctor, I usually have figured out what is wrong, and I'm looking for them to confirm my suspicions.
Okay. So is that before you could Google search every symptom, or is that currently?
That's kind of my business that I've been in for years. So
yeah. So you
I have
know
the knowledge. Yeah.
Okay. So what business are you in, Rose? That you said you're in the counselor with St. Clair Child and Youth. You're a connector, right?
Yes.
So let's dive deeper. So if I said the doctor is not in the business of health or healing or cleaning that up, they're in the business of giving you your life back. Would that make more sense?
Yeah.
Right? So you don't go see a chiropractor because you want your bones snapped back in place. You go see a chiropractor to lift up your grandkids again. You go see a chiropractor because you want to go golfing. You go see a doctor because you want to be healthy, not because you're injured or sick, right? So if we reframe the business that you're actually in, because you mentioned, you solved this right away when you said you are a connector, right? So
yes.
That's the business. So it's not the counselor piece necessarily. It's not necessarily those pieces. You're in the business of connecting. You're in the business of relationship building. And we talked about this earlier with Blue Point PR, business of connecting, right? Does that change the way that you look at that business scape? if you look at it from a perspective that you're not out there to heal or solve a problem or whatever, you're there to connect. A doctor's not there to mend your broken arm. They're there to give you your mobility of life back, your freedom, your power. Does that change it?
Yes, I may be getting there.
Okay. So if you were to, hold on, this Zoom popped up a bunch of stuff. Okay. If you were to frame it this way and you were to write it down, okay, I'm really in the business of ... What are you really in the business of? And I'm asking you to be vulnerable and go deep. I'm asking you to understand what is at the end of this, call it marketing, call it PR, call it, psychology, call it whatever you want. But at the end of it all, think of your client, think of the person you serve, and what is the real value that they get? Okay. What is the real value? And this is for everyone to try and dive into. How do you get to that?
I feel that the real value that they get is that they end up feeling empowered because they had someone to go to listen to their concerns, and they're empowered because they're able to share their ideas and any ideas accepted. So it's empowering people to feel, I always want people to feel satisfied with the services that they're getting.
Okay. Okay. So if they are feeling satisfied with the service that they're getting, then realistically, you can't be satisfied until they leave empowered. So you're going to continue to offer more value and more opportunity until they feel that empowerment. And then is there a possibility, if they feel that empowerment, is there a possibility that they don't feel satisfied?
Always.
But is it shrinking?
It's shrinking.
I picked also the person that said, I always look for what could happen. You're like, it's always never going to get a definitive from you, Rose. And I like that. I like that. So it shrinks it, because in the end of the day, in the service-based industry, if somebody came to work with you and you just gave them a chance to air out their concerns or share their ideas, and then they left and they were just considered, meeting number 4 on the day, Zoom call number 6, they would never come back.
No, they would not. Nor would I.
You wouldn't be serving them, and you wouldn't do this business. But if you were able to, over time, not one shot, over time, be able to create that empowerment, that value for them, is that a lasting opportunity for you? And then do you feel fulfilled in the work that you're doing?
Yes, I do. And that is it's a progressive thing. And that's, I think, how I operate, is to always be able to look back and think we did the best we could do there, working with everyone's influence. At the end of the day, I want everyone to feel that they were heard. Yeah.
So now the concept, you understand how it ties into your narrative and who you are and what you're offering. Now, how do you convey that to people? How do you make that part of your story? And I'll give you an example, because I did this as a part of my my college project in my last year, where we had to take a business and rework their marketing. So we did the chiropractors, and I had this conversation with a chiropractor in Toronto. And I said, "What are you in the business of?" He said, "Oh, people's back hurts, and I help them over 6 to 8 meetings or visits. I fix it." And I'm like, "Okay, you don't know what you're talking about." And I interviewed his clients. And I said, "Why are you here?" "Well, my grandson's coming home on the weekend, and I really want to play tag. He loves tag, and I want to play with him." The next guy, "Why are you here?" "The club curling championships in 3 months, and I've won every year, and I twisted my back at work, and I'm not losing to Doug. He's never going to beat me," and blah, 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 blah. The stories from your clients tell the narrative. So what we did for a marketing piece was we filmed them. Tell me why are you here? So we made the narrative, we changed the narrative. What business are you really in? I'm in the business of club championships. I'm in the business of chasing my grandson. I'm in the business of cutting my own lawn. So that, helping you cut your own, so that was the narrative. And he went from 20% booked to 60% booked, because now people are like, that's me. That's what I want. I don't need somebody else to twist my back. I don't need somebody else to tell me I need somebody that'll listen, but not listen I need an active listener. I need somebody that's going to let me have my turn. It's going to care about what I have to say with no judgment. And when I leave, I feel like I can do me. I can finally be me. And if you can build that into your messaging, into your story that goes out, game changer. Who doesn't sign up for that? Right?
Good. Yeah.
Does everyone else kind of get that? Rose and I are just going off here. We got 45 minutes together. Make sense?
That was awesome. I loved the way you did that.
Great. I'm glad. I'm glad.
So much to think about.
I'm here to serve, Helen. I'm here to serve. That's what I'm thinking. All right, let's look at number 3. You got a mission, you got a mantra, you got a business that you're really in, but who is it for? So I talk a lot about marketing. Talk a lot about who your target market is. I don't like target market. I like dream client, because there's certain clients that I have, the certain, not specific people. I'm not talking about who is that exact person. I'm talking about the aura or the concept of the person I want to work with. So take client and make it partner, make it relationship, whatever your target is. Who are you looking to work with? And there are people that I have that I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, man, I got to work with that person. I have actually, so random segue for ADHD purposes. I used to wake up in the middle of the night and I would wake my wife up and I'd be like, crazy idea. We're going to start a company and we're going to take everybody's pictures, like all the ones that the kids draw, right? That are, you get 40 of them every day in kindergarten, and we're going to store them and digitize them. And we're going to turn it around and we're going to send it back to them because we have 500 pictures and the kids can do it. It'll be like a work project for the kids. And why are you looking at me that way? And she'd be going back to sleep. Got to the point where I wake her up and she'd say, go tell the kids. She would literally send me after the old kids and they go, leave me alone. So now I have a box beside my bed and a notepad. And when I wake up and I have a great idea, I write it down and I put it in the notepad and put it in the box. And then at breakfast, the kids read it back. And then I'm like, that's a dumb idea. That'll never work. That's a horrible plan. But I get so many things in there. And then other ones I'll be like, that's fantastic. We should do that. So many times I wake up and there's a name in there. And it might be Anheuser-Busch. It might be whatever. So I wake up, I'm like, I'm dreaming about working with this person. I will not stop until I work with that person now in some way, shape, or form. So when I first started IllumaTap, our very first patent, beer tap handles that light up and text you. We went on Dragon's Den. It was great. Jim Treliving partnered with us. Kevin O'Leary swore at me and left. It was a wonderful experience. Leaving from there, I had one target and it was Budweiser. I wanted to sell my product to Budweiser and I dreamt about it. I could not walk away. So I found my angle. I went and knocked on the doors at Anheuser-Busch St. Louis, right in St. Louis, met the girl at the front desk, brought her coffee every day, trying to get my meeting, and it never happened. Eventually, I found it's the people I want to work with. So I made friends with Philip Bush, who's the grandson to the heir of the entire thing. I made friends with him. I found him. It was kind of creepy and maybe a little stalkerish, but I made it work. Found him, became friends. And then I was like, listen, I got this beer tap thing after months. And eventually it led to me selling the entire company to them because he was on my team and I built the relationship. It was a long process. I can tell you only 10% of it while you're recording. So here's what I need you to do. I want you to identify the dream client, the dream partnership, and I want you to go deep on this one too. Not just I'm in the business of this. What really makes them tick? What makes them unique? You've heard of the 80-20 rule, where you're spending 20% of your time working with, you make 80% of your money from 20% of your clients, right? So you don't need to work with everything. One of the number one things that I see when I coach businesses is that everybody wants to be everything to everyone. Because somebody says, oh, you're in the field of human resources. Lisa, you're in human resources. What do you do? And you're like, it's not one thing. It's not one thing, but it can't also be everything. You can't solve everything, right? So we try and develop, what is it that we are really trying? Who is our dream client? So if you got a phone call tomorrow from the perfect person to work with, either partner or make a client, could you create a persona around that? And what I mean by a persona is, in marketing worlds, we look at creating that person, that persona. Like, here's Debbie. Debbie is an active rock climber. She's empowered. She's, a mother of two. She's a college graduate. She's got disposable income. She's part of 3 communities. We literally dive into everything about her so that you will create that persona so that when that person comes into your life, you can't miss it. Okay. So you can't, you really, really can't kind of step away from it. Is this making sense? You guys with me? Right? So if you know who that person is and you write it down and you keep track and you know that that's an opportunity, that's going to lead you to having an opportunity to have some really, really good conversations. But then you can go further and you can look for them in your area. Okay. So Marika, am I saying it right? You got to tell me if I'm saying it wrong because we've talked twice now. Is it Marika?
It's Marika, yeah.
Okay, don't do that. I was like, just at that one moment, I'm like, what if I'm saying it wrong? So,
I honestly though, I get so many different versions. And
Oh,
people get
that's-
really, actually, when you have an unusual name, people get really annoyed when you correct them. So I've kind of just like lost when I was working in like retail and high.
15 small to medium-sized businesses out of the 3,000 in Sarnia Lambton that you could work with that would fit your ideal client mold.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, would that be considered a small amount of the pot?
I think it would be a small amount, actually. Yeah.
So if you were to work with 15 of those people, how many of them would you need to close and have on your team working with your company to make your company sustainable? Then you are able to find that target that you're able to go out and create that sustainable growth. But once you have it, you start to actually fine tune who that dream client is, who that dream person is. Because in that exploration, those first 10 to 15 people are what you believe is ideal, but then you have to kind of massage it a little. You start to realize, wait a second, that's too corporate. I don't mesh with that. That's, this person's not enough of a focus for me. They're not meeting my values, not enough. But you start to mesh or maybe they don't have the money and you identified wrong, right? Because in the end, you got to get paid. Does this make sense? So that's your next homework. You create a list of 10 to 15 people, okay? The next step. Are we on? I don't know where we're at for time. This thing doesn't tell me. 7:56, we got time. Okay, the next step, step 4, introductions made easy. How do you say hello? Now, it sounds simple. It sounds really simple, but it's not, okay? If you look at society today, go to an airport before COVID, go past any high school, any public setting, and everyone's sitting there just like this. They're all disconnected. Right? Everyone's staring at their phones and they're just mind-numbing or whatever. But if your dream client is sitting on the park bench, how are you going to introduce yourself? What could you possibly do in order to do that? So there are many ways that you could say hello to somebody. And this is when it gets awkward. When I pull that slide up, I see a few people being like, oh no. But let me give you a couple examples first. A little story and then I'll leave you. Frank Kern is a guy who wrote a book called How to Say Hello to a Woman, or sorry, not How to Say Hello to a Woman. He wrote a book on common things you can say to a woman during a date. And now this is a long time ago when the internet first came out, but this was Frank's book, $39.95 available to buy, and he sold almost none of them. The problem was he didn't realize where his clients were. There was a whole bunch of men and women that didn't even know how to say hello to a woman. So he wrote another book and he gave it away for free. How to say hello to someone you're interested in. And now back at the time, it was targeted towards men saying hello to women, which now is obviously broader, much broader. But it was a matter of how to teach men how to say hello to women, free. And he got thousands of downloads, thousands of people got access to it. The next book, conversations you can have, conversations to start, how you can flirt, how to have conversations with a woman, free, tens of thousands of downloads. The next book, how to ask her out, free, hundreds of thousands of downloads. You see all these people that are out there downloading this book, having the same approach, the same conversations, asking them to go to the same dinner, the same Italian restaurant on the same Friday night, the same. The next book, how to prepare for the date. The next book, what to wear, all free. And then eventually, hey guys, listen, I know there's like 500,000 of you, but I've given you all these free books, but I need a little bit of money. So I've got this book, Conversations to Have When on a Date with a Woman. It's $49.95. Could you buy this one? I've given it a lot for free. And he broke the internet. He made tens of millions of dollars. People download because they can't live without him anymore. They have to they're like, the date's in 3 hours, Frank, give me the book. So you have all these guys, they go out and they have the same date, the same conversations. The date ends, you get to the house, you get to the doorstop, what happens? Panic. Frank didn't tell me what to do here. Frank starts the whole series again. How to go in for the kiss, how to ask her second date, what to do, boom, how to propose for $29.95, tens of millions again. So he created this opportunity by creating value in that. It literally started with hello, teaching people how to say hello. And it tells something about society that we don't know how to do that. We don't know how to introduce ourselves. But there are millions of ways that we say hello, whether it's, hey, hi, how you doing? What are you doing here? Can I help you? How can I help? Whatever it is, what are your go-tos in order to say hello and introduce yourself? So, with that being said, the moment of truth. Who is willing to try? Seems so calm, and I'm like, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out right now. But it's energy. So you still get the same thing. You get the butterflies in your stomach. You get like the knees knocking, the cold sweats, whatever it is, right? But whether it's nervous or excitement or fear, it's the same feeling. The only way that you will overcome it is by repetition, by doing it. Put yourself out there, break down those walls, break down those barriers, and get comfortable being uncomfortable. So you got to really push yourself there. The other side of it is understand what fear actually is and why it's holding you back from sharing your story to other people. So if you understand, most of the time we're afraid of the unknown, right? Which is introducing yourself to someone that you have no idea is vulnerable, and it makes you feel like you don't know how they're going to receive it. But if you know that you have value, if you know that you have value and that you're there, you can be confident. And there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. And I had my kids challenge me on that. I went, you're so arrogant. And I'm like, no, I think the difference between confidence and arrogant is intent. I don't believe I'm better than anyone else. I don't believe that I'm smarter than anyone else. I don't believe that I'm here to prove to anyone or put them down. I am confident that I add value. I am confident in my abilities, and I am confident in a short conversation you can understand why. So there's a difference between the two. So people are like, you just want me to get in there and be super confident, arrogant, and boast. No, I don't. I want you to recognize that your story is important and that the connections you make are valuable. And you have to put yourself into situations where you can do that. There's a great opportunity thanks to this pandemic. I'm not saying COVID, thank you. I'm saying there's a great opportunity. You're currently behind the digital shield. So you have the ability to reach out to people, because meeting someone in person, saying hi to someone in person, is more difficult than in a digital world. But I challenged a lot of my students at Lambton College to reach out to 2 people every day through Zoom, through whatever. Reach out to 2 people. Pick somebody that you really want to talk to. And then if you're really, really gutsy, reach out to someone you're in a disagreement or a long time fight with. And get them on the call. You want to work through some stuff? Well, what's the worst that can happen? They hit close meeting. Okay, we're still fighting. Next. Right?
Can I actually add something to that, Brian?
Yeah, do it.
I attended, and I mean, I reference conferences a lot, but that's because I love to do professional development, and I'm somebody who just like absorbs what other people have to say all of the time. But I attended a really interesting women-focused women in business conference recently. And just because, you know, this is a women in politics initiative, I want to add this to the confidence is not arrogance piece, and also the getting kind of through your fears. There was a comment made in a whole discussion about the fact that women often feel that they have to be experts before they put themselves out there, before they speak to a topic, or before they approach that person. And they were like, the message was, why is it that women believe that? Like, we don't know that. It's mainly because, I mean, we've been told we have to try that much harder and do that much more work and all of these things before we do those things. But it's important for us to remember that, like, you know, we are just as qualified. We don't actually have to be qualified by someone else as an expert to know that we are like able to have those discussions and those conversations. So I just thought that was interesting to add from like the women's lens of things, because it really goes along with what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reality too, in a lot of cases is, and anybody that's putting themselves out to speak or be in front of somebody else believes that they need to be the expert. But the reality is when you are put on that stage, you're immediately the expert. You are now in front of people, you're the expert until you prove yourself wrong, which can happen. And it's really awful when that happens, but you are put in front of them, you're the expert. But if you believe and you've done the work to scaffold yourself up with confidence and know your value, then you can be as much of an expert as you need to be. But most of the reality is you're connecting with other people. And then through shared collaboration, that's when the expertise comes out. So there's no such thing as direct, I say there's no sales anymore. There's no more used car lot salespeople trying to convince you or manipulate you. Like that only lasts so long. But the new attitude is building that relationship to co-create. And then you see long-lasting success, and then you see long-lasting abilities. And that can come from literally anybody, whether they be man or woman or transgender or any LGBT, like any identification, doesn't matter, as long as you know your value coming through and you can express that. Where people get stuck is in the story of what I'm not. And then you get stuck. So you got to do the work and scaffold up so you know who you are. And that's not always easy. It's uncomfortable, lots of tears, lots of frustration, but you can get there for sure, for sure. Okay, I don't even know what time it is. And Helen, if I keep going, there's only 5 steps, so I'm going to do this. And then if I'm going too long, just yell at me here.
Brian, you are just fine. This is really great stuff.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Okay, step 5, last step. And I was going to make it a 6-step process because I think it's funny whenever there's a 6, it's just the next, people always think there's 5. But then I thought, no, it's understanding the purpose and close. So you break it into 2 if you want, but we got to talk about closing because we're trying to go from there. So we talked about this just now. If you understand your why, your purpose, why are you in the room? And do you believe that you add value? Can you help? Are you worth it? Then you have to do it. And there's a spelling mistake, which I'm not going to be able to focus off of. It's not the do it, it's then do it. And I'm now, my ADHD's locked it. But if you understand your value and your purpose, then you can go up and you can be comfortable being uncomfortable. You can put yourself in the situation to give yourself a chance to catch that dream client. But what happens when you meet that person and then you introduce yourself and you break down wall number 1 and they now know who you are? What's at the end? Well, that's when you close with confidence. So in the sales world, we want to ask the questions. We want to close and get them to be partners, get them to be clients, because people want to say yes. As a society, we want to say yes, but we're trained from the moment we're infants to say no. Think about kids. Everything goes back to kids. Think about how many kids. Can I have a cookie? No. Can I stay up late? No. Can I get a piggyback? No. We say, don't say no to piggybacks. They only last so long. But the rest of it, we say no to, right? And we train that in there. But as a society, we want to say yes. That's why when you go to the grocery store and they're handing out the little meatballs, or they're like, would you like one? You're like, yes. You're like, why did I say yes to a meatball? I don't want a meatball right now. It's weird, right? But you say yes. Or you're walking through the Air Canada Center, you're at the latest sporting event or concert, and they're standing there with the credit card form. Did you want to get a credit card, a MasterCard? And you're like, yes. They're like, you're like, no. And they're like, you get this free hat. And you're like, free hat? Of course I want a free hat. Here's my credit rating down the drain. I'll take a free hat for a toque. How Canadian can we get? We want to say yes. Okay. But what happens most in any opportunity to share your story and co-create and collaborate is that you don't actually ask for the final sale. You don't close. So many ways that you can do it, right? Simply, if you're in a business where you need to gain money, they need to work with you, like with a credit card in retail, asking for the credit card. If I can get your credit card, I can get that product shipped to you today. Can I have your credit card? You can't dance around it. You can't say, do you have a credit card? Because if you paid, I could ship it. Then they'd be like, yeah, I have a credit card. You have to literally say, can I have your credit card number? Put them on the spot. Then they're like, yes, I can. But what about in your business as a service? If you're looking to work with somebody, how do you close? How do you get them to work with Blue Point PR? How do you get them to work with Martin Vrolik Marketing? What do you do that signifies to them that this is the decision moment? Because we did it all our lives as kids. Mom, can I have $20? No, right? but we asked for it and put the decision on our parents. Then as adults and business owners, we hold back our punches, we pull our punches, we don't ask for the close. So I'm asking you, what techniques, or do you have ways that you close business currently? Anybody?
I just want to add to this, because if I just want to make, like, I just want to talk about not just like from a business lens, and remind everybody that so many things you do are sales and you don't realize it, right? Like even when I was at Children's Aid, when I moved into PR, and I had been doing things behind the scenes that were very PR-ish for a long time, but when I moved into the role, people were like, well, no, that has nothing to do with Children's Aid. I'm like, are you joking? You literally, if you can't build relationships with people, you can't help them. Like they will not buy in to what you're selling them, which is, you know, this better family life, this new relationship with their partner or their children, or any of the things. You can't sell them on, you can't get them to sign your plan of service if you can't build relationships and sell them. So the same thing goes for like this politics group, right? If you're running a campaign, you need to sell people on why they need to vote for you and not the other candidate.
You're
So I just
constantly, you're exactly right, Marika. You're constantly closing, even if it's, you know, my wife saying, can you get the towel off the end of the bed? If she's like, can you do it? I'm like, I absolutely can. Versus get the towel off the end of the bed right now. Enough of that, right? You're doing it in little ways, but you're always selling, and selling has a bad connotation, but you're always closing, bad connotation. You're always connecting. So the key to closing with confidence, regardless of the words you choose, if it starts with you knowing your story, understanding your values, and scaffolding up and building the story that way, by the time you're ready to ask for them to support a candidate, to ask them to donate to a board, to ask them to join you in a fundraising effort, to ask them to work with your company, to ask them to be a client, to ask them to be a partner, to ask them to be whatever, you've built such a strong narrative that all you have to do is ask. And the ask can be as simple as saying, I'm really excited to work with you. Can we start on Monday? I'm really excited for you to join our team and support our candidate. Can I get your signature? Will you sign here? I have the signature sheet. Sign here and we can start working on focusing, changing this neighborhood. Whatever it is, you put the pressure on them to make the decision, because once the decision's on them, now the story changes. Right? Because up until the moment of truth, the decision-making moment, they're just listening. And what happens while they're listening? They're formulating either objections or agreements. Okay, so there's a trick that I'm going to give you right now that I didn't even plan to, but I'm going to do it right now. When I started my conversation with you guys, I talked about being a father, an inventor, a speaker, a circus clown. I talked about my wife. I did all of those things. While doing that, in your mind, subconsciously or consciously, you start to connect my story to yours. Like, oh, he's a father. I'm a parent. He's got kids. I got kids. Oh, he's a middle child. We're middle child. We're upper middle child, right? You start to connect my story. So what I'm doing there is winning over the narrative within everybody. I'm putting myself in the group, right? So I'm here. I'm in, right? So I try. You do those little pieces. So by the time I come to ask you for something, which there is no sales pitch at the end of this. Please know that, Helen. This did not set you up. There's no sales pitch at the end of this. It's totally fun for me. But by the time, if there was, it wouldn't be a stranger asking for a connection. It wouldn't be a stranger asking you to do something, because we've created that narrative and that storyline, right? Versus somebody coming in and saying, hey, it's great to be here, everybody. Today, for one low price, $19.95. I can say, no, you're like, get out of here. Nobody wants that, okay? So when you're closing with confidence, please know that you've built your confidence, you understand your value, you know your narrative. So at the end, you just have to ask. And the best thing I can give you, best advice I can give you, is to practice to close. Practice it. Because if you walk away from a relationship and you're like, I don't know what happens next, it's likely because you didn't ask. Likely because you didn't close, right? And that's the worst feeling, when you're like, what a great conversation, what a great meeting. Oh man, I wish we could follow up. And you're like, opportunity gone, unless you figure it out and stalk them, right? find a different way there. So we're not going to do the pitch piece because I know we're way too far, but that is my narrative story on the story building, knowing your story, building your confidence. There is no sales pitch. I mentioned that as well, but I wanted to just make sure you guys know I'm happy to have been here to talk to you. If I can help any of you in your business or in the endeavors that you're doing, please let me know, because I'm happy to help out in any which way, because I think it's great what you're doing in the community as well. You can contact me through the Signing Lambton Economic Partnership, because I am a virtual service, what is it called, Lisa? What's the title? What do we, Lisa does it too.
Yeah, we're virtual service advisory.
It's not as easy.
Yesterday.
Virtual service advisors. How do you?
Come on, if we both struggle, it's not just me. Virtual service advice. I hate titles. I'm not good at titles. Virtual, so you can contact me through Signing Lambton Economic Partnership or email me at any point in time. But I've had a blast talking to you guys. I hope that you've got as much value out of this as I've gotten out of you. I appreciate it. I'll happy to answer any questions, chat until Helen tells me to get out. So